This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Dave's Killer Bread is ready to rock your January reset with killer taste, killer nutrition, and a chance to win a VIP concert prize pack. Text RESET to 73876 to enter. No purchase necessary. Visit daveskillerbread.com/reset for details.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives. And I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. It's December 1st. It's December 1st. And do you know what that means? It's December 1st. It's December 1st, 2015. And do you know what this date signifies? This date signifies the countdown to our holiday stress. December 1st is the kickoff of the stress countdown. And why do we get so stressed out? I mean, besides the fact of the shopping and trying to find the exact right gift and all that BS, what's more stressful than that? What makes that look like a cakewalk? You know what makes that look like a cakewalk? Dealing with your family over the holiday season. Dealing with those crowds and getting kicked around and all that. That's easy. You do that 5 times in one day and come back around and do it again. Go work out at the gym after. Holy hand grenade. Dealing with family can be brutal. We all know that we can get really stressed out by things that people say, stuff that others do, judgments that are made, assumptions that family makes, labels that they constantly give us, those labels. Those labels that we don't seem to be able to live past, we can't live down. Constantly dealing with these labels. And how do we deal with this? How do we deal with the stress that we have when it comes to our family? Because isn't the holiday season supposed to be the best time of year? I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that all year long should be the best time of year. But don't you feel that the holiday season, for the most part, should be happy, should be joyful? And why is it that as you head over to your family's house, it's like you're going to the judging, the jury, and the executioner all at the same time? And what are you going to do about it? Some of us, what do? I'm going to take a couple of stabs at what people do right now. I don't know if that's a good word, but I'll take a couple of ganders, really. The first thing is that you get over there, and what do? You've already drank before you got there. You start drinking some more, so you really show your ass. I know people that really love that eggnog and rum, okay? They say it takes the edge off. I know some people that smoke double packs of cigarettes those days, and they hide it because most of their parents don't even know they still smoke or don't even know they smoke. Some people just get extra edgy. You know, I have friends and I also have clients where they'll be driving in the car, heading over to the in-laws' house, and literally one of them is freaking out, yelling or upset or taking out everything on the spouse. Because the last thing they want to do is deal with these family issues. I was in a client meeting the other day, And we were talking about that. And one of my clients said that she loves her in-laws, but yet one of them doesn't even speak to her. Acts as if she doesn't even exist. Sitting at the same table, eating Christmas dinner, they actually don't even speak to her or pass her food. I mean, come on. This has got to get ridiculous. There comes a time where you either stop going or you got to get it out there in the open. And tonight I'm going to give you some really great, good ideas, good concepts, some various caveats, and some options that will work, even in the worst case scenario. And eventually, after this Christmas, you might actually want to see them the next holiday situation that you're going out. You actually might not hate doing it anymore because you actually were able to, for the first time in your life, stand up for yourself and say what you had to say. I mean, I find it interesting how we don't like to stand up for ourselves when it comes to family. It's like we revert back to the childlike state where we were small, itty-bitty, and only talked and only spoke when spoken to. And I think the first thing I want to talk about right now, the first subject matter I want to bring up right now is the opinions of others. The opinions of others when it comes to us. Everybody's got an opinion, right? I try not to have a lot of opinions about others because I figured out, first, it makes me look like an ass. 2, I keep my opinions to myself. And 3, I don't make judgment calls based on my opinions. If I do make judgment calls based on my opinions and they're negative, I need to walk away in that relationship right now and move on because there's nothing that can come out of it that's good because I'm going to continue to see that person in the absolute worst light. Do you hear what I'm saying? Because I've already made the judgment call. And the same goes for us. The opinions of others can rue the day. Because the problem is that people make opinions of us, and we wonder how other people feel about us. And guess what that means? They're directly judging us. They're judging you. When you sit down at the table, and everybody's about to eat, and you see somebody look at you from the side of their eye. And the problem is, too, is that our mind is making all these decisions for us that may or may not be real. Oh, look at so-and-so looking at me. I wonder what they're thinking. If they got something to say, they might as well say it. And it becomes this whole shitstorm, right? Because we're so frustrated with what we know or feel we're being judged about that we internalize it, right? We think about it. We get stressed out about it, and we ultimately get upset, angry, snarky, rude, short, ill-tempered, or we get quiet and just let everybody rock right on over us. I think the biggest thing about being judged is that they're judging you probably on a situation that took place or a lifestyle choice. And I know some of my clients have had to go back and see their family after they came out of the closet. And they said that was the hardest time that they ever had, but they were happy they went because they didn't want to deal with not doing it, with not telling the truth, with not allowing them the option to accept it. Because I think that when people judge us or when we feel that way, we're also ultimately judging ourselves. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, when somebody has an addiction, let me give you an example. So, I work with clients a lot before they go into sober living or rehab facility. And it's interesting because those clients will usually look at me when they're using and say, you're judging me. Don't look at me like that. Why are you looking at me like that? I hate when you look at me like that. Stop that. Stop it. Stop it now. And I'll be like, okay, I'm not judging you. And I'm not. I mean, I'm a psychologist, and it's okay. I'm not judging you. I'm not sitting there going, oh, gosh, let me judge that person. I'm wanting to help them. But the issue is that they are actually judging themselves. The reason why I quit smoking, and this is a funny a funny reason for some of y'all, and some of you might actually connect with this absolutely immediately. The reason I fundamentally quit smoking is that the last month of my smoking career, the last month, I would go outside of, the office building and smoke. And at first, when I smoked back in the day, a year before that, it was a social thing, so it was cool. But the more and more I smoked, especially during the day and at the office, I realized that it really wasn't social anymore. And I caught myself literally outside, not looking around, but facing the wall of the building. Okay? So I'm a foot from the building, from the wall of the building, the big stone wall, and I'm looking right into it so nobody else sees me. And that's when I realized not only do I need to quit, but I need to quit because I've already judged myself because I know that I shouldn't be smoking. I know that I shouldn't be smoking, and I knew it, and I felt it within me that I was better than that. And that's when I quit. And it wasn't other people looking at me because nobody really gave me the eye. It was funny because most people didn't even know I smoked, and it wasn't until, I guess, a week before I quit, I was hanging out with some friends, and I pulled a cigarette out of my cigarette pack in my purse, and I used to smoke Parliament Ultralights. That was the last cigarette I started, the last cigarette brand and type that I ended my smoking career with. And I pulled out a Parliament Ultralight, and I grabbed my favorite lighter, and I lit up, and everybody looked at me like I was freaking crazy. And I looked at them, I was like, what? What's going on? And all three of them looked at me and goes, since when do you smoke? I go, excuse me? They go, are you just now starting to smoke cigarettes? I go, what do you mean? They go, we've never seen you smoke. Did you just start? And I go, oh my God. I've hidden it so well, I've hidden it from my best friends. They don't even know I'm a smoker. I went through so many Starlight mints, so much Fireball gum, Dentine Fire gum. I mean, I could buy stock in that. Brushing your teeth, flossing your teeth, Starlight mints, Dentine Fire gum was my perfect combination so nobody could smell that I smoked. And I didn't ever smoke in a closed environment, therefore I didn't smell like it. And I was like, guys, I've been smoking for 3 years. They're like, oh my God, are you serious? But it was like they were looking at me crazy, but it wasn't them judging me. I realized I had ultimately judged myself. And I feel that when we go on our holiday excursion back to our family, a lot of us are constantly judging.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Ourselves based on our lifestyle, based on our situation when we were a kid, because we kind of go back to that kid childlike mentality. It's hard not to when you go back home with your family And some of you, your parents have taken your childhood room and made it into a pool hall. Others of you, they made it into another office. Some of you, they made it into their sewing or macrame room. And others of you had the great pleasure of seeing your room the same way it was when you left home. And some of you, even go a step further, have the great pleasure of sleeping in your childhood bed when you're back at home. What makes you feel more like a child than sleeping in a twin bed? What makes you feel more of an insignificant, no voting power, can't drink, can't smoke, what can you do child as sleeping in your old twin bed or your trundle bed or whatever it is with your dolls around, or if you're a guy, your G.I. Joes, your Transformers? Seriously. And we all go through this. And so the thing is that we have to overcome the personal judgments we've made, the identity and the defining factors that we've given ourselves. But we also have to deal at the same time with the opinions of others and how they've ultimately labeled us as well. Okay, so think about it. There's labels that we have, these labels from childhood. Some of us, they labeled us from when we were young adults. There's all kinds of different labels that we've been given. And I find it ultimately interesting when it comes time to have a family dinner, when that label ultimately comes out of someone's mouth. And it's always to someone's chagrin, their delight, it feels like. And they'll tell you about these labels. They'll bring up unhappy memories. Maybe memories that make you feel insecure. Maybe make you feel a little lesser of a person. Some of you still feel sad. Some of you still feel guilty about what they talk about. What about the loneliness? What about ultimately feeling small? And I want to give a non-family example first, and then I want to give a family example. The first, a non-family example. It was about a month and a half ago, and I met an old friend of mine, and she and I sat down and had a few drinks together and reconnected. And everything was great for that first hour and a half. It was perfect. It was picture perfect. But, you know, she's probably about 20 years older than me. And that doesn't matter. I mean, age doesn't matter to me. But, you know, when we first met, I was a lot younger, very crazy, and probably up to no good, right? Not like in a bad way, but, you know, just, you know, having fun, getting trash, going out with your friends, you know, making bonehead choices, that kind of sort of thing. And we're actually really getting along on a good friend-to-friend level, and all of a sudden she brings up this reminiscing of me. And the first thing out of their mouth always, too, is that, oh, I don't want you to feel bad, but remember this? I don't want you to feel bad, but remember this? It's almost like I'm not trying to be an asshole, but you did this, and that wrong. Well, you know what? They are being an asshole, okay? That's just the way it is. Nobody sits there and has a precursor of, well, you know, I'm not trying to be a jerk, or I'm not trying to be mean. But that but is your indication that, yes, indeed, they're trying to cut you down to size. And it was interesting because I thought that this person was going to be a little more relevant than this. I thought that this person was going to be, I don't know, what's the word? More adult. But I found in that brief moment that they're not. And even if it's the alcohol talking, the point is that why do you have to bring it there? I didn't bring up her divorce. I didn't bring up when she was screwing another guy and got caught. I didn't bring up any of that. No, I didn't, right? But I accepted it. But it felt like I was back at home dealing with family issues on a holiday. And let me give you a good example of a family problem. You go home for the holidays. Things are fine, but you're waiting on it. Because you know something's about to be said about it. You could have come up with the cure for cancer. You could have stopped AIDS in third world countries. Okay? You could have stopped the plague. You could have gone to Africa and stopped the deadly disease plaguing certain areas. You could have been in the Peace Corps mission and saved 70,000 children from a flood because you came back on a boat 192,000 times and saved one by one. It doesn't matter. You could have been the first person set to go to Mars on your own personal excursion, and you may never come back, and you're doing it for the good of society. Does not matter. If you peed in the bed, if you tinkled in the bed when you were a kid, not gonna be able to live up to it. It's like you could do everything. You could have invented the internet, for God's sakes, but it doesn't matter because you peed in the bed, and everybody's going to think about you as the bedwetter. And ultimately, at dinner, somebody's going to be like, hey, you remember when Ashley used to pee in the bed? Yeah. Remember that? You had a real problem with that, didn't you? Couldn't just seem to wake up to go to the bathroom. I mean, seriously, I have clients right now that currently deal with that, and they get so angry and so defensive and so upset before going to the holidays because they know they're going to bring up something bonehead like that and make them feel like they're 5 again. It's not fair. It's not fair because you've already gone past that. I mean, these people are major professionals. They do a lot of good work in this world. And the last thing they need to do is to be beaten down mentally and emotionally by family members that want to talk about the absolute worst of the worst and how stupid you were as a kid. You know, I had one time my uncle, and I love my uncle dearly, and we get along very well now. But we didn't always. We did not always get along. And, you know, when I was younger, yeah, I got a DWI. I made a bonehead mistake, and I got a DWI, and I was 17, and it was not the drinking age. Drinking age was 21, and so I got the book thrown at me, underage drinking and 2 years probation. And, you know, the family finds out about it because, you know, ultimately you don't have that kind of money to pay for the courts and all that stuff, and so you eventually tell your mom, and then what happens? The rest of the family finds out. And I remember it was actually at a Thanksgiving lunch, and he was sitting at the table, and I'm sitting at the table, and my cousins, and my grandmother, and my great-grandmother, and my mother, everybody's sitting at the table, and I remember him looking at me a couple times. And he looked at me, and I looked back at him, and I'd already gone through the probation, cleaned up my act, moved on. But he looked at me funny again. And I finally looked at him, and I did not do the right way. I'm not telling you to use this approach. I mean, it ultimately worked, but I'm not telling you to use this approach. But the approach I used, because I wasn't a therapist at this time. I hadn't gone through all my schooling. I hadn't gone through all my life living and all that good stuff. And all I knew was that I wanted to get to the bottom of the issue and find out why he's looking, out the side of his eye at me. And I looked at him. I said, what's your problem? You got a problem with me? What's your problem? And he just kind of looked away. I was like, oh, no, I'm not getting into this. And I was like, yeah, but you've already gotten into this because you've already started it. And yeah, there was a little bit of argument. I could have probably done it in a better way. However, I did not. By the end of 45 minutes of complete and utter argumentation, we both left the table. Other people kind of just skirted off, trying to get out of the way of fire. And by the next day, we had accepted each other, had agreed that we would let it go, because I said, you know what, you keep defining me as that kid that was 17, you won't let me grow past that. So you keep defining me as that, and that's not fair. I made a mistake, and I shouldn't have done it, but I've asked for forgiveness. I've done 2 years of probation. I've done everything. I'm not drinking. I'm not getting screwed up. And I realized I learned a big, big, big lesson. But you got to stop judging me at that point. I mean, because that's not fair. And I find that a lot of people fall into that category with family because it happens, right? It ultimately happens because family makes a decision based on something that you did. And then judges you for it and then looks at you funny because you can't live it down. And I'll give you a good example. I have a friend of mine. He's a very close friend of mine. He's a professor. He's in doctoral school. He's finishing his PhD. He's one of the smartest people in the world I know. One of the absolute smartest people I know. I mean, like, just a genius. And he did a bonehead thing when he was young. When he was 18 years old, he got into a little bit of drugs. And he got in with the wrong crowd. And, you know, they ended up getting caught stealing. And it was sad because his family judged him from that for years and years to come. And it wasn't until about a year ago. I mean, this guy is a genius. Like, literally, he was on High School Jeopardy with Alex Trebek. Okay? 1,600 on the SAT, freshman year of high school. In the story. I mean, just like 180-something IQ. And he literally looked at his family last year and said, you know what, I've had enough. I'm almost finishing my doctorate. I got all this scientific stuff. I'm working with Harvard Medical. I got this, I got that. I'm doing this, doing that. I'm working on MIT with a project right now. And y'all keep judging me when I did drugs with those kids when I was younger and made a bonehead mistake and robbed a house and stole their stereo equipment. And I did 5 years probation and I went through it, but I've moved on and I've asked for forgiveness and I've done community service and I do community service without even needing to do it. And I'm at that point where I just need y'all to let that go. And if you can't let it go, then I'm going to need to let our relationship go for a little while until you realize the importance of seeing me as a human being without judging me from things that happened to me when I was a teenager.
At Kroger Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Kroger Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.
And for all you out there who are dealing with something just like this, you know how important it is to just let it go. You've beaten yourself up over it already. See, that's the key. That's the key thing here. It would be different if you didn't have a conscience. And everybody had to tell you how bad you were just so you could sink in that, you know, hey, you're not the best of the best, you know? But if you do have a conscience and you really care and you think about this stuff, it just hurts your feelings when people keep just bam, bam, bam all the time. And you're over there like, man, why do I do this to myself? Why do I come over here? Why do I try to do holidays with these people when all I'm going to get is scrutinized, be made fun of, and feel like a piece of crap? This sucks. Later on in this podcast, I'm going to give you ways of getting around that. But I just want you to understand where I'm at because I feel that you're dealing with something like this, and most of us do, because a lot of times people make assumptions, and that's key because it's like let me explain. So you know when some people they always make judgment calls on other people, they've made labels, they have these labels, they judge them by their labels that they've created. And it's like for example, like a married couple, you have like, let's say the wife constantly feels like the husband's cheating on her, but he's really not. He's really not, but she keeps thinking he is, and so she keeps checking his phone and calling him up at work and stopping by at work to see where he's at, and he's not cheating, but the problem is over a period of time, right? Over that period of time, as she keeps doing this, as she keeps thinking he's cheating, as she keeps doing all these crazy things, usually people get really frustrated and they start wondering, man, why aren't I cheating? Why aren't I? I'm being treated like a cheater. I'm being treated like I'm cheating on her. So why don't I get some sex on the side? I mean, I'm getting treated like it already. Why don't I get some, why don't I get some strange over there on the other side and do what I want to do and do that? Maybe that's what I should be doing because I'm already labeled as a cheater. And the same goes for the labels that were created when we were kids that we seem to not be able to live down. The DWI, the drugs, the stealing, the bedwetting. Maybe you got in a lot of fights in high school. Maybe you were one of the guys that picked a lot of fights or got picked on a lot. And, like let's say, for example, there's some guys out there that didn't want to fight back, and so you're dealing with that whole label from a dad as you're a coward. It's not fair. You were a child. or you were a young adult, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you're a grown adult now. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman, and you should be treated as so. So let's begin to really talk about these labels from our childhood, because I think that these labels are what keeps us from having personal relationships with our family that we need. And the first thing I've realized, that when people try to label you, one of the things that you can do when you're sitting at the table and someone goes, well, remember when you used to wet the bed? I always like it when they've had like 2 or 3 eggnogs or a couple of vodkas and somebody has to bring it up, when everything seemed to have been smooth, but not so fast. Remember when so-and-so used to wet the bed all the time? Well, how did all that work out for you? Ha, 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 ha. You know, and then it comes up and then somebody else's kid, they got, somebody in your family, their young kids dealing with bedwetting. How did you deal with it? And you're over there like, man, since when did I become head bedwetter here at the holiday event? And the first thing I figured out that you can do with these labels, and I call them personal label attacks. So when somebody comes at you with a personal label attack, see it for what it is. Don't be all stressed out. Don't wear your feelings and your heart on your sleeve. Instead, you can catch it when you're in the right frame of mind. When people talk like that, it sounds so foreign and it sounds so utterly out of place. So let me give you an example. Let's say that everybody's sitting around and everything's great and joyful, and you're talking about a wonderful opera you saw or a symphony and how beautiful it was, and somebody from out of the blue said, I hate that shit. You're like, what? What's wrong with them? Same applies. If you're not making judgments on other family members, and if you're not making judgments on yourself, and you're not falling for other people's labels and judgments of you, then when somebody calls you out and tries to label you, it sounds foreign. And the best way that you can deal with that is to say in a positive manner, in a very nice, clear, concise way, that's great. By the way, I think it's funny, but I think we've gotten past this, haven't we? I mean, if you're 35 and they're talking about you when you were 5, there's been a good 30 years of knowledge and wisdom, and I'm sure we could go around the table and poke fun at everybody and bring up all their shortcomings. But I figure that this is the time that we should be building each other up and instead of trying to break each other, because I guess we are family, right? Yeah, we're not each other's enemies. We're family, and we can talk about things that are going on now and actually build a relationship, because what I know is that when you go to the past to try to keep a relationship, it doesn't work because you got nothing in common. And usually that right there, it's done. Because who's going to argue with you on that? Because you just said you're over it. You're done with this. You're not interested in this. You got other things to talk about. Would you like to create a more balanced relationship and discuss what's going on now? Or would you like to bring up everybody else's shortcomings? Let's throw it out on the table and make everybody feel bad. No, people don't want to do that. They're pointing out your shortcomings so you don't point out theirs. Do you get it? Ding, 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 ding. What do we have for him, Johnny? Oh, my God. We have the truth. Yes, they're pointing out your shortcomings because they don't want you to point out theirs. You see what I'm saying? They're going to beat you to the punch. And you can even point that out, too, and say, hey, you know what? I didn't point out your shortcomings, and I don't plan on doing it because I love you. Because I care about you. And because ultimately I'm a friend. And you can just walk on off. And I'm being honest with you because you have to remember you can't be a jerk. You have to honestly love people and tell them that you love them and say, hey, God bless you. I want the best for you, but I'm not going to sit here and get, ragged on by you. I'm not going to stoop down to your level and drag you through the mud, which I certainly can. And it's probably going to be a lot worse than bedwetting. Okay? And maybe a little more, I don't know, relevant because some of the stuff you've done happened recently. But see, you don't want to play that game with them. When you start rolling in the dirt with people, you get dirty. When you start rolling in the dirt with people, you ultimately get dirty. And what happens? You look like an ass too. And you begin to deserve, people see you as deserving of the rude comments. And so the best thing you can do is to be the good person you are and let it go. And if you say what I just said, basically, in a nutshell, I mean, you have to be a real bonehead person to argue with that. I mean, it's like you're over there telling the truth and being honest and faithful in how you feel and caring about people. And it's hard to discredit that. You know, and I think when it brings up these unhappy memories, when people throw out these labels, bedwetter, you know, somebody that stole, a felon, you know, whatever it is, I think when they bring that up, you know, you feel lonely, you feel upset, you feel unhappy, you feel stressed out, you feel sad, and you feel small, and you start just allowing it to just like waves over you. And I think we need to talk about that right now, because the way that people make you feel by bringing up the past is more important than what the past was. And why I say this is that you, as an individual, have to allow yourself to grieve over things that took place, accept it, and let it go. And so let's just take the bedwetting thing, for example. You say you were a bedwetter, and you wet the bed for a good period of 6 months between the ages of 5 to 6. And you never kind of got over it. Well, here's the therapist part of this show. It's time to accept the fact that you wet the bed. It's time to accept the fact that you were a young child that probably slept very deeply and didn't realize what you were doing. I mean, heck, you could have been having out-of-body experiences and had no idea and wet in the bed. You could be drinking a lot of water at night and your family didn't realize you had a small bladder. There's a lot of things there, okay? But what I'm saying is quit judging yourself over this. This is way old. It's time to move on. I mean, when people bring that up, you should actually honestly get a good laugh out of it. I mean, like an honest, real, true belly laugh out of it. Because you know what? The more you think it's funny, they'll stop bringing it up. When people try to bring things up to make you feel bad about yourself, if you genuinely find it funny and you laugh and you don't take it personally, that'll be the last holiday season that they ever bring it up, because it didn't get them what they wanted. They wanted you to feel ultimately bad, for you to get terribly small, and for you to shut the hell up for the rest of the thing. That's what they wanted. They didn't get it. They wanted you to start a fight with them. They wanted you to get upside down and angry and mad and just violent. Ah! They didn't get that. Instead, they got a belly laugh, humorous. Even, hey guys, that's hilarious. Oh my God, it's funny. Yeah. Yep, that's hilarious. That's funny. You know, walk out of the room, go grab yourself an iced tea and do what you need to do. Not in a rude way, just, you know, pat them on the back. You always bring good laugh, you know what I mean? Thanks a lot, that was funny. I hadn't laughed like that in a long time. They won't be talking about that at all, okay? You just screwed up their whole deal. They wanted you to be upset. They wanted you to be angry, and better yet, they wanted you to feel teeny tiny. Oh, there's teeny tiny over there feeling sorry for herself. Always just so sorry for herself, the bedwetter. See? Instead, you're like, that's hilarious. I was 5. That's great. I mean, come on, that's hilarious, you know? I should have been in the bed with you and wet it on your head, you know what I'm saying? That would have been really funny. You know, the next thing is that no matter what these labels are that you were given as a kid, don't let them get in the way of your living. When these labels and the feelings that you have begin to get in the way of you living a happiest, joyful life, that's when you've got to sit down and say, why is that happening? Why? Why am I allowing these people's words and comments to get in the way of my soul's happiness? This is wrong. And I would advise at this point to sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and write down the possible labels that you're going to hear this Christmas, and look at it from another standpoint outside of yourself, and look at it from a friend's standpoint and see, how funny is this? How stupid is this? How ridiculous this is? But better yet, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. You can't go back and change what happened in history. Okay? I can't go back to my 17th birthday and change the fact that I was driving home with my boyfriend and I got pulled over and I got a breathalyzer test, or a drunk test, and I passed it, but I had a couple of tickets out for me, a couple of speeding tickets, and so I had to wait 45 more minutes for 2 other police officers to come and give me another sobriety test, which they made me fail due to some circumstance because they had already come out there because I had those 2 tickets that I hadn't paid, and go through that process. I felt awful about that. And it wasn't until, after dealing with my uncle thing and going through that, but it wasn't until after that I was trying to volunteer at Make-A-Wish, at the corporate offices at Make-A-Wish Foundation. I was trying to volunteer there just for volunteering. I'd already done my community service, but just for volunteering, because I had to deal with a condition, and I deal with it my whole life, and so I understand. I've been through what most of these kids have been through, and occasionally still going through that stuff, and I wanted to help out kids that are, that had gone through it too. And I remember getting my background check in and filling all that in, and then getting a call from the president of Make-A-Wish asking me if I could come down to the corporate office to talk with her. And I said, sure. I came into her office, and she goes, Ashley, come on in. She closed the door, and she goes, my daughter's name is Ashley. And I go, man, that's a good name, And she goes, hey, I got your background check. It came back, and I need to ask you a question. Because we don't normally take anybody that's had any misdemeanors or felonies, and you don't have a felony, but you have a misdemeanor, and I need to get this figured out before we allow you to work as a volunteer with these kids. I said okay, and I felt real bad. I could already feel it. I could already feel that heavy weight coming down on my head and down on my neck and my shoulders, and I was like, oh God, now I'm looking like an idiot in front of this woman. This is awful. And she said, did you get a DWI? And I said, yes. She goes, I need to know all the factual evidence behind that. And I shared everything I just shared with you. And I said, and not a day goes by in my life that I wish I had not drank. I know I hadn't had very much to drink, and it was just kind of not being in the right place at the right time. And maybe it was a lesson I needed to learn at that time, so I wouldn't learn a bigger lesson. Maybe so I wouldn't get hurt, so I wouldn't put myself in a worse position. And I said, but I understand if you don't want me to volunteer, but I really hope this doesn't get in the way. It's really important to me. She goes, you know what, Ashley? It's not going to get in the way. She goes, it's okay. And I started to almost cry and tear up in that meeting because it just made me feel so down because I didn't realize how much anger and negativity and sadness I held by having that over my head. And I remember all the way driving home, I really kind of did a prayer, and I sat down when I got home, and I wrote out, does that define me? No. So why do I feel so bad? So I had to get over the fact I had to forgive myself. I had to let it go. And I feel that everybody listening tonight, you in particular, you got that thing you got to let go. And until you let it go, your family and people are going to use it against you to intimidate you and to put you in line. And it's not until you let that go on your own that you're able to flourish. And the biggest thing about this, too, is that when you're able to let it go, you're not looking for acceptance anymore. The acceptance of others isn't needed. When you've dealt with your own problems and your own issues, and you've gotten over things, and you've allowed things to be, and you've looked at yourself in the mirror and said, you know what, I did that, I'm not happy about it, but guess what, I'm going to move on. It's time for me to move on. And I'm going to forgive myself right now. I'm not going to do it again. I learned from it. I'm not going to forget it, but I'm going to forgive myself. And I'm not going to define myself based on this situation or based on this label. And I'm telling you, if you do that honestly, and you believe in that, this holiday season, if they label you by that, is going to be way different. Because no longer are you looking for them to make you okay. No longer are you looking for them to validate you and say it's okay that you did that, let it go. You've already done it. And you're the only one that can do it. Do you see what I'm saying? It's that whole acceptance thing. You're the only one that can accept yourself. Even if you get acceptance from everybody in the planet, except for 2 people, you're not going to care about everybody on the planet. See, this is the human condition. You're going to care about those 2 people. Isn't that asinine? But isn't it true? I mean, think about all the space and storage in your mind that you allow the naysayers and the haters and the people that just like to fuck with you to get into your head. Isn't that true? Think about all the time and effort that you allow and you think about when people do things wrong by you. And think about the acceptance that you need so badly that you can't get from a particular parent. But on the other hand, one parent loves you and cares about you unconditionally. But that's not in the forefront of your mind. Instead, you're just thinking about what you don't have. It's time to embrace what you have. It's time to pull the acceptance card away from the people that want to hold the card. And the way to do that is, and this is a good example I use with my clients. Think about a bottle of water on a table. And that bottle of water is the acceptance that you want from your family. Once you quit wanting that bottle of water, i.e., the acceptance, they will freely give it to you. However, the more you want it, it's like keep away. I'm going to keep away my acceptance from you because I know you want it. I'm going to keep you on the hook because that's how I keep your attention, right? And think about it. Throughout childhood and throughout our life, there are certain people that have our attention because they actually show they care and they're a good person and they love us. And there's other people that have our attention because guess what? We love pain. Oh, man, got to have that water. God, they're holding that water. Man, they got their back turned to me, and they're looking over their shoulder at me, laughing at me because they're holding that water. The water's the acceptance I need, right? Yeah. And as I continue to play this game, trying to weave and bob to get that acceptance, guess what? They keep hiding it from me. It gets more and more elusive. It gets more and more difficult to get. But when I finally say, you know what? I don't need it anymore. I got my own water. And you show the bottle of water you got. And it's bigger and it's better because it comes from you. And a water, again, is the acceptance, right? You have personal acceptance of yourself. Once you accept yourself for who you are, their acceptance doesn't mean anything. I mean, great, thanks. It's like another, it's like another notch in your belt. Hey, thanks, man. Glad we're on the same page and we love each other unconditionally. But you know what? That's what you want, is once you get your own personal acceptance, you change the whole game. You moved on. You've taken their pieces and their puzzle and all that stuff, and you've taken everything and let them head home with their marbles. You don't need it. You're not playing anymore. It's time to move on. And for this holiday season, for y'all going through these acceptance issues with others, to deal with the labels as a child that you still have to live up to or live down as an adult, let it go. Say what you mean. But the biggest thing is to accept yourself and realize, let it go, because when it doesn't bother us, it doesn't bother us anymore. When it doesn't bother you, guess what? They realize it, they sense it, and they stop doing it, because the reason why most of them are saying this in the beginning is because they want to bother you. It's just the way it is. They want to ruffle feathers and see what happens next. But when it doesn't ruffle feathers, and you don't need their acceptance anymore because you got your own, it changes the whole game plan. There is no game. There is no spoon, remember? There is no spoon. There is no game. And you can go on living a great life. And I think this will help you to have a joyful and happy holiday season, because this is what matters. Because you can actually step past the labels, step past the judgment, and talk like normal human beings. And sometimes people might need a lesson on this, and it doesn't hurt to educate people on what it means to be an honest, straightforward person. I have a lot more shows in store for you about the holiday season, about dealing with family issues, about dealing with different family dynamics, about different types of personalities during the holiday season, because we all have to deal with that sometimes, right? We all have to deal with it sometimes. Those different personalities, those different situations that, are difficult. And we're going to talk about those here in the next few weeks. We're going to be counting down a little bit here on the Christmas holidays because I want you to be completely, successfully, peacefully armed to deal with any situation you have to deal with, to deal with anybody that you have to deal with, and guess what? To triumph. This is your holiday too, right? You should enjoy it. You should be happy. It's a great podcast here on Spreaker. And you can obviously find my shows here on Spreaker, all of them, most of them at least. And check out ashleyburgess.com, ashleyburgess.com, my website, for any information you may want to know about me or about my work and about maybe my therapy or my coaching. And remember, this is a holiday season for you. And when we continue to live it for other people, we lose out. So see the time that we have as a present moment. The present moment is a gift that we've been given. Use this gift wisely. Accept yourself. Trust in yourself. Forgive yourself. Love yourself. And after that, you won't need other people's acceptance. Stay tuned. Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Be back this time. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.